Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. If you missed the first part of this video, I will link that down below, but that is where I explained what this challenge is, and I will also provide links to the post on Reddit r Fantasy describing the challenge and a link to the bingo card. All of that will be in the details box. So let's get right back into my plans and recommendations for the squares on rows 3 to 5. So next up, the first square on row 3 we have is a mystery plot. So my first pick is one I have seen the adaptation for. It's Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I absolutely loved the film. I have loved Jeff Vandermeer's Born, and The Strange Bird, his novella follow-up, is one of my all-time favorites. So I really want to get into this. His style of new weird is absolutely my thing. For other mystery plots I have to point to, I have The Perfect Assassin by K.A. Dorr. I have The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde. And I have City of Lies by Sam Hawke. The next square is going to be a comfort read. So this is a special square where we can actually use a reread. Normally, you are only allowed a single reread per year across the entire board. But for this square, we're specifically being told we can go for something we have existing nostalgia for that is just a cozy comfort read. So I've got two picks like that. I've got Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett's Good Omens, my very favorite book of all time. I have got a favorite from last year, which you will all recognize, The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I read this on ebook last year and absolutely adored it. It was a cozy hug in a book, and I bought a physical copy, and I would love to reread it this year. And then I have a booktube darling, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So this one I have not read yet. I did read The Starless Sea, absolutely enjoyed the writing, so I think this one will probably be a good comfort and cozy read for me. The next square up is published in 2021. So just get excited about something that's coming out and read it is really my advice. I have read a ton of 2021 releases already since the challenge has started. So I have read Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. I have read The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. I am reading Sorrowland by River Solomon, so I've got lots to pick from. But what I think I'm going to actually go with is this beautiful copy of The Betrayals. This is the Waterstones edition. This is written by Bridget Collins. I absolutely adored The Binding by Bridget Collins. It's not for everyone. It's a very slow-paced and low magic. But this one, I understand, is a dark academia story. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this. I ordered it from the UK. It is not quite out in the US, but that means it will be a 2021 release when it does come out here in, I think, about a month. And next up, we've got Cat Squasher. So our Cat Squasher means a book over 500 pages, or I think the hard mode is a Lion Squasher over 800 pages. So in sci-fi and fantasy, that's obviously pretty easy to do. So I'm gonna go with one I've been reading. You have already seen probably, The Aeronauts Windlass by Jim Butcher. So he knows how to fill some pages. So if you're looking for any picks, you might check Jim's back catalog. Next up, I have one I've been wanting to get to that I can recommend. The River of Gods by Ian MacDonald. This is another chunky boy. This is a near future sci-fi set in India. And a booktube darling, Patrick Rothfuss's Name of the Wind. So this one easily fits. This is well known to be a very lengthy read, but a lot of people fly through it. So the last square on this row is SFF nonfiction, which was a tough one for me. I was kind of surprised. I thought I had more memoirs or something, and I just do not. So I only have one pick for myself that I'm going to go with. This is Classical Mythology, a very short introduction. These very short introductions are great, slim little volumes put out by a university press, and they can be got for just about any topic you would like. So this one obviously covers classical mythology. There is very tiny writing, but they're great for picking up and reading 2 or 3 pages at a time. So I plan to do that with this volume. Next up is one that I would recommend to you all, and that is The Language of Night by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a collection of essays on the sci-fi and fantasy genre, or genres, written by her during the 60s and 70s, and they feel so applicable and appropriate to today. They talk a lot about the feelings of the Western culture, about genre fiction in general. And she is so witty and smart in her writing. If you have never read essays by her, I would just absolutely urge you to pick this up. So that is row 3. We are through that row. So on row 4, our first square, I only have one pick, and that is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I absolutely have to get to this. This is kind of a modern classic, I guess, and something that is always referenced, so both in literary and in fantasy squares. So this one I absolutely have to get to. If you're looking for other options, I would say you can pick up anything by Silvia Moreno Garcia, anything by Anna Maria McLemore. Those are Latinx authors that you may want to check out. Next up, I've got self-pubs, so self-published works. If you need help looking for a self-published work, you should probably check out something like Mark Lawrence's self-published fantasy blog off, which is a contest for self-published work. That's how I discover lots of things. In particular, I think both of these have been entrants. So my pick for this one is going to be the next book in the Digitesque series by Garrett Hash, The Second Contact. So I absolutely love this series. This is my favorite science fantasy series as far as I've read so far, and I want to finish the series this year, so I'm going to be getting back into this. Obviously, I own a physical copy because I love these so much. My other option here is going to be the 3rd book of the Yarns World series, and these are kind of all companion novels. And so you can pick up at this point, this one I understand is kind of Spanish inspired, and it will be basically a story with folklore woven in between chapters. That's the formatting of the Yarns World series. So this is Those Brave Foolish Souls from the City of Swords by Benedict Patrick. All of the Yarns World titles are super duper long, so if you're looking for other types of readathon challenges with long titles, this is a great series to pick up. And then I have loads of ebooks of self-published series, so those are not hard to get to. Next up, we have A Forest Setting. So I am reading Sorrowland, which the whole first part does take place in the forest. If you would like to use that, Sorrowland by River Solomon would fit here. I also have The Green and Ancient Light by Frederick S. Durbin, and this one has been sitting on my physical TBR shelf for a while. I think it's a portal fantasy, so I really want to get to that one. And then I have a classic, Mythago Wood by Robert Holdstock, and I actually have the sequel to this as well that I haven't read, so that one is a good one to get to. Next, we have genre mashup. So I've got some weird stuff for you here. So we've got Bitter Seeds by Ian Tregillis. This takes place in World War II, but with warlocks and supermen. So magic during World War II and alt history, so that's kind of a mashup of sci-fi and fantasy. I've got God's War by Cameron Hurley. This is another sci-fi fantasy mashup. It takes place in the near future and definitely has magic. It's got an assassin protagonist, so it sounds like it's got a lot to it. And then Deadlands Boneyard by Shannon McGuire. This one is a weird western, and the weird western genre is obviously western, but then it usually has some paranormal and horror and fantasy elements mixed in, so Weird West in general is a great selection for this square. And the final square on this row is chapter titles. So I have a lot of options here, and 2 of them I've already read. So I think my pick here is going to be Herland, which does in fact have chapter titles, and what that means is just text titles ahead of the chapters. Let's see if we've got a chapter listing here. We don't have a chapter listing in that one, so we'll do, the other option is Lead in the Mist, which we do have a chapter listing here. So you can see those chapters clearly have titles. And my last pick for this one, I've heard this one has chapter titles as well. So The Unspoken Name by A.K. Larkwood. So that's it for row 4. Row 5, we're almost there. So the first square of row 5 is a title, a book title, that is blank of blank. So that's pretty common in fantasy particularly. So my first pick is that one that I've mentioned I have to get to here, is The Curse of Chalian by Lois McMaster Bujold. Is a big option. I have The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks. I love the Culture series. And I have Conspiracy of Truths by Alexandra Rowland. So I mentioned this was also a book club option as well. Next we have First Contact. So I've got a couple options here. I have Blind Sight by Peter Watts. And from my physical TBR, I have The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. And this one I really want to get to. I have the follow-up sequel. I'm fairly sure I'm going to enjoy it. So definitely want to try to get to this one on this square. I think I also have Semiosis on my 5-star TBR, and that would work for this as well, but I do not own that one. So that's not a priority to get to, but I would point to you to get to that because it's got First Contact with alien plants. So the next square I have here is trans or non-binary character. And for the regular mode, it just has to feature a character who is trans or non-binary, but for hard mode, it has to be the main POV. So I have a couple options here, and in fact, I'm reading Sorrowland, and Sorrowland fits for a whole lot of squares here. So Sorrowland does have non-binary characters. It also has a two-spirit indigenous character, which I think would fit with this square. So that definitely works. My other options here are Jacqueline Carey's Starless, and this one I think is going to be my priority here. This is a standalone fantasy in a desert setting, so definitely really want to get to this one. And then I have The Devourers by Indra Das, which is like a werewolf story in India. So those are my main options, but then on ebook I also have Swordheart by T. King Fisher, which would work there, and I have Blackfish City by Sam J. Miller. So those are also options. Next up, we have debut author. I have loads of debuts, so I'm going to show you a couple that I already went through. So these ones are debuts that also work for other squares. So I have The Lost Puzzler by A.L. Kless. I have Zero Sum Game by S.L. Huang. And I have The Traitor Baru Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. And those are all debut works from those authors. The final square, we're almost done. So our last square here is witches. So this can be anything featuring witches, and they can be the culturally appropriate witches of their area. So Bruja, Brujo do work here. First up, I have The Crestomancy by Diana Wynne Jones. This is actually a bind-up of the first 3 books. So I probably will not read all 3, I'll just read one, but that would be a great pick. I have Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor, and I have Wicked by Gregory Maguire. So we've been through a pile of books. I am really looking forward to Mingo, as I said in the first part. I absolutely love this challenge. It always kickstarts my reading. It gets me so excited to pick things up, and I'm really hopeful to get through some of my owned books this year, really this time. So I hope that you have enjoyed seeing my plans and possibilities. I'm very curious if any of you are participating in our fantasy bingo. Hopefully you will try it out with me. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe.